I'm the president of the Arthur W. Page Society. We are a global membership organization for chief communications officers of Global 500 companies, the CEOs of global public relations consultancies, and then just a couple of dozen academics who teach communications at leading business and communication schools. Our mission is to advance the enterprise leadership role of the Chief Communications Officer. So we're really all about the CCO. Most of our members are CCOs. And that sounds perhaps a little self-serving because we're about making ourselves more important in the enterprise, but really for this end. The purpose is because we believe that when the CCO has a strong leadership role in the enterprise, that the enterprise is more successful, that the business is more responsible to broader stakeholder groups, and that it is more able to build reputation and earn trust. So that's what we do. And it's basically an ongoing learning and networking organization. We come together, we speak to each other, we have outside speakers. But recently, in more recent years, we have become really focused on doing our own research and our own reports, our own thought leadership work. And this is really all about taking a more proactive view of the role of the CCO as it evolves, and about the importance of the role in helping enterprises build corporate character and earn trust and reputation. So we began our thought leadership reports in 2007 with a report called The Authentic Enterprise. And basically, we looked at the environment in which business is operating, rapidly changing. Globalization, the social media revolution, and the rise of new kinds of stakeholders, empowering new kinds of stakeholders who are having increasing influence on the stakeholders that we traditionally have cared most about, our customers, our shareholders, our employees, our business partners. But this broader social media world, global world, where the conversations and dialogue is really beginning to have influence, and people are building not only relationships, but also new kinds of communities. Having a big impact on enterprises, changing, therefore, the role of the Chief Communication Officer, who now must be more responsible for helping the enterprise be more authentically worthy of trust. That report was followed 2 years later, in 2009, by a report on building trust in business. And we learned a number of things in that report, the most important of which was the importance of mutuality, the concept of mutuality in building trust, which basically says that you're more likely to trust someone who shares your interests. And so that just demonstrates the importance for the enterprise of having a broad societal purpose, and not just building value for shareholders and customers, but building broader societal value as well. More recently, we issued a report called Building Belief, and it essentially promulgates a new model of corporate communication. This report emerged from our observation that many of our members were beginning to work differently, and we just asked some of our members, what are you doing? And we began to put together what looked like an emerging new model. Basically 2 parts. One says earn corporate character, and the other says build trust. Now we've begun to do some reports which delve down underneath the new model and try to explore it and validate it and check it, and in some cases we may end up evolving the model as we continue our work. More and more companies are understanding the importance of reputation. We recently did a survey of CEOs, and the CEOs increasingly understand in the social media world the importance of authenticity, the importance of employee engagement, the importance of all employees understanding the mission, purpose, values, culture of the organization and embodying it in everything that they do. And I think increasingly CEOs and other business leaders appreciate the role that the Chief Communication Officer can bring to the enterprise in helping the enterprise earn trust by becoming an authentic enterprise with corporate character, and by building relationships with a broad set of stakeholders. It's critically important for an enterprise in order to build the kind of strong stakeholder relationships with broad stakeholders, not just employees, customers, and shareholders, but society and NGOs and community groups and that sort of thing. It's really critically important to have a strong definition of corporate character. And I think that has to start with mission or purpose. The purpose of the enterprise, yes, of course, is to develop customer value and shareholder value. But I think it's really critical for enterprises to think of their position in society and the responsibility to build broader societal value as well. And if you start with that broad definition of mission or purpose, that gives you a grounding to earn the engagement of your employees, because they want to be a part of something that's big and important and good. So if you start there, that's a good place. The second thing, I think, is the importance of values. Those are your core beliefs, but they have to be more than just things you write on the wall. They have to define the way you actually act. They have to be translated into behaviors. And so that creates a strong corporate culture. Culture is very simply just the way we do things around here. And so every company, every enterprise has its own culture. The question is that culture aligned with a strong mission? Is it aligned with a sense of values that have been carefully thought through and defined? And then how do you build behaviors that align with that mission and purpose? The same goes for your business model. How do you make money? And have you thought through carefully how that aligns with your culture and your values? What's your strategy? What's your operating model? What's your brand? All of these things have to be carefully thought through and defined, and then activated across the enterprise in a way that they create an authentic, coherent whole. That's corporate identity. We recently completed a study on corporate character, and we interviewed half of the Fortune 50. And to our surprise, all 25 were doing specific work on values and culture. And in most cases, they were relating that work to their mission, their business model, their strategy. And so I think the lesson here is that companies are, in fact, working hard on defining the character that they want to have, activating that character throughout the enterprise, and then aligning all of their operations, strategy, et cetera, with that definition. And so the lesson here, I think, is that companies understand the importance of reputation, and that reputation has to be based on authentically deserving it. And so that's what building corporate character is all about: definition, activation, and alignment. I think in most companies, the CCO role is increasingly important. CEOs and other C-suite executives understand the value that the CCO brings. Not always, however, and I think that it's a constant battle. And I think that it's really critically important for CCOs to really be good, to understand what they need to do, and to bring that value to the table. And new skills and capabilities are required of CCOs today than in the past. They have to really understand the importance of corporate character and how to build it. They have to understand social media and digital engagement. They need to understand behavioral science and how people make decisions and what causes people to act on their beliefs. And so we see many, many challenges. And in some instances, we see almost confusion within enterprises as to the role of the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, and the CCO, the Chief Communications Officer. In the digital world, paid and earned media are kind of converging, and so you see some pressure in some enterprises to converge those two functions. In my view, they remain distinct functions. It's critically important that they work very closely together. That's always been true, but perhaps even more true today than before. And I don't have a problem with seeing those two functions combined, but it needs to be done in a way that preserves the unique characteristics that each bring to the table. In one case, it's about selling and presenting the brand. In another case, it's about earning trust of broader stakeholders with a broader stakeholder view. In general, though, I do see that the CCO role is being more broadly appreciated, and many, many CEOs do understand the importance of reputation and the ability of the CCO to work across the C-suite to get everyone in the enterprise aligned behind the corporate character of the organization and to build value with stakeholders. There are many challenges facing this chief communications officer today. Change so rapid. The digital world is emerging. The traditional media is giving way to new kinds of media and yet maintains significant importance. The necessity of the CCO to really understand how to work across the entire C-suite to build value across the entire enterprise. It's a stronger leadership role than perhaps was the case in the past, requiring different kinds of skills. The ability to really understand behavioral science and what motivates people to act. And the necessity of really understanding global business, being experts in business as well as in engagement. It's a challenging role, and I think it's attracting different types of people. We tended in the past to be historically former journalists, and many of us, I was one, many of us still are that, but other types of people are being attracted to the role. People with business backgrounds, legal backgrounds, behavioral science backgrounds, and all of that I think is welcome. The role is changing. The challenge is to keep up. The challenge is to be smart and engaged and always forward-looking. There's a lot going on in the educational sector as well, both in communication schools and business schools. In communication schools, it's really important to understand that we're not just talking about the traditional communication skills, but the business-oriented skills, the broader leadership skills are really critically important. And I think it's important for communication schools to make sure that they're preparing students for the broader corporate communications responsibilities that we've been talking about. Business schools, at the same time, have a responsibility that CEOs and other business leaders need to understand the importance of intangibles, the importance of reputation, and the importance of working across the C-suite to build trust within the entire organization. And at Page, we've been advocating that business schools provide their students with an understanding of the importance of communications as a strategic management discipline. You find in most business schools strong courses on finance, strong courses on management, strong courses sometimes on even human resources, but oftentimes they ignore the role of the chief communications officer. And so people come out of business schools without this broader view of the importance of stakeholders and the role of society, the importance of businesses' responsibilities to society. And so we're advocating that all students coming out of both communications and business schools have this broader kind of understanding of the importance of the role. The most recent Edelman Trust Barometer shows plunging respect for government all over the world. And yes, business is also under challenge, but a little better respected. I think there's a clear opportunity for business to see its role in building strong societal value, in partnership with government, in partnership with non-governmental organizations, but in many cases playing a leading role. Business organizations are more sustainable than government because they create their own revenue. A well-run business creates profit, reinvests in its own operations, and is sustainable. If that organization is building broad value and thinks of its role as being to build value in society, that's the way that we can create opportunities for emerging markets, for people to be raised up into the middle class, to create stronger health, environmental responsibility, to build better societies. Business can and should play a key role and think very clearly about its responsibility to do that. There's a professor at Harvard Business School called Michael Porter who talks a lot about shared value. He makes the point that it's not only an opportunity for business, but it's critically important for business to think of its role as building societal value in addition to customer and shareholder value, and I agree with that. This very rapidly emerging social digital world in which we now live, it's fascinating how things are changing, how everyone now has the ability to be a publisher. And we all have influence. You know, we have friends, we have neighbors, we have people who share our interests, and we're now able to communicate with them on almost any topic overnight. And so every individual has the power to be influential on others. When I checked out of my hotel this morning, they gave me a little piece of paper reminding me to go on TripAdvisor.com to give my rating of the hotel, because that's important to them, that I have something to say. People who listen to me, not that I'm that influential, but my friends may see something and say, oh, maybe I'll stay in that hotel. So we all have this opportunity. And yet at the same time, you have the traditional media having major roles. The importance of a story in the Financial Times is just as great today as it was, and then that gets reflected in social media. So you have this really fascinating ongoing digital commons in which communities are having conversations, and it's really important for enterprises to understand that their responsibility is to participate in that conversation. If they don't, the positions and the reputation of the firm will be formed by others. So it's really critically important to engage. That means at the corporate level, but it also means at every individual within the enterprise. And that's why it's so important to build a strong corporate character where you trust everyone in the enterprise and they're empowered to participate in that digital conversation that's ongoing 24 hours a day around the globe. At the Page Society, we truly value the relationship that we've built with corporate excellence. Corporate excellence is doing some wonderful work on the same topics that we're doing work on. And we're finding that the exchange of views between our research and our work and the work that you're doing here at Corporate Excellence is really enriching both organizations. I'm very, very pleased that you've translated our work into Spanish and that enterprises in Spain and Latin America now have the ability to benefit from the work that we're doing. At the same time, we're learning from you and incorporating some of the work that you're doing into our thoughts as well. And so this exchange of views is creating great value, I think, around the world. People who speak Spanish and enterprises in all languages are learning from each other in a way that's really productive.